What's up, guys? It's Meow, and I am back with another video. It is late at night, and I need to be getting to bed, but I'm making this video now so I can upload it in the morning when I get up before I go to work. Uh, this is actually a precursor to my Road to Revenge Royal Rumble episode, in which this entire video is basically a timeline comparing WWE IRL to my booking from post-Wrestlemania 38 all the way through to after Survivor Series War Games. Just going through a lot, namely and specifically with the women's division. Um, I'm not gonna mention every single thing, like every single match, every single promo, all that other stuff. I'm gonna try to keep it to relatively to significant things in certain ways and whatnot. Mainly with the main roster, though. This will delve into NXT as I have some things I'm doing there. So just it's gonna be a long video. So with all that said, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you do not miss out on future videos and streams. After I get home from work, I'm gonna work on the Royal Rumble video so I can get that done and get that uploaded, and then IRL Royal Rumble predictions should be after SmackDown tomorrow night, and hopefully Saturday night there will be a live stream. I cannot guarantee that there will be or will not be. Stay tuned. But with all that being said, let's jump into this. So, as I said before, we kick things off post WrestleMania 38. So obviously, in real life, Ronda re-challenged Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Title, which became an I Quit match at Backlash. We got Lacey Evans coming back, which was a convoluted mess for the entire year. Raquel Rodriguez makes her SmackDown debut. Rhea turns on Liv to join the Judgment Day. Bianca has a little feud with Sonya and didn't get a Backlash match, which was weird, but whatever. And Asuka returns to feud with Becky for a little while. Um, Now, certain things that happen in real life will still happen in this timeline. For example, again, Ronda re-challenging Charlotte, Raquel debuting, Rhea's turning on Liv. That stuff still happens. What I also have, of course, is Alexa has a vignette mentioning her future return. Uh, Bianca and Becky's feud continues past WrestleMania with one last match at Backlash because Becky is dead set on trying to get her title back. It is starting to lose her mind. And Sasha and Naomi get to face Shayna and Natalya at Backlash after having beaten Rhea and Liv, which led to the Rhea turning on Liv. So that's the same as it happens in real life, except they get a tag title match at Backlash because, yeah, we're cleaning up that part of the timeline as you will see moving forward. So we get to Backlash. Ronda defeats Charlotte, and Rhea joins the Judgment Day. In real life, here, Sasha and Naomi beat Natalya and Shayna. Rhea does join the Judgment Day. Charlotte defeats Ronda instead of Ronda defeating Charlotte. So Charlotte remains the champion, but Ronda goes out as a heel and injures Charlotte in the process. So Charlotte will be out for a while. Um, and Ronda just goes away because I'm sorry, I don't like Ronda. I just don't. So it's just go, please. Although she will have a part in this story far later on with one of her friends and fellow competitors, but that we'll get to in future episodes. And then Bianca defeats Becky one last time, and Becky gets met afterward by Alexa, and Alexa takes her away. So after Backlash, in real life, Alexa returned and defeated Sonya Deville in her return match, Sonya having just been fired as GM, but it remains a wrestler. We get the NXT Breakout Tournament, Women's Breakout Tournament, that is. Um, the Sasha Naomi walkout, which I should very much make clear does not happen in this story no, because just no. Um, Natalya won the right to face Ronda Rousey at Money in the Bank. Liv would team up with AJ Styles and Finn Balor to face Edge, Priest, and Rhea Ripley at Hell in a Cell. And then we had the triple threat between Bianca, Asuka, and Becky at Hell in a Cell um, as replacement for whatever plans there were for Sasha and Naomi going into that pay-per-view, with the rumors being that Naomi was going to win the match that would give her a shot at Bianca, and Sasha would go on to face Ronda. But anyway, I've already done videos on that before. Go check those out if you haven't seen them from like forever ago. But in my timeline, Bianca gives out open challenge on Raw for her title, and Asuka is the one that answers, which will begin a short feud going into Hell in a Cell there. Because again, as I've stated in my videos, which by the way, there will be a playlist down below in the description. Go check all those out. I've been focusing in large part on the Alexa stuff, but in each video I will have like an update to what's been going on with Bianca on Raw up until where she starts getting a little more involved with Alexa later on, and then you kind of go from there. Just to kind of let y'all know what's going on over there with that title. But here, again, Alexa appears on Alexa's playground, cuts a promo discussing Bianca's win and taking Becky under her wing. Sasha and Naomi open SmackDown discussing Charlotte's injury, and then discuss giving the tag titles their shine, which then leads to Nikki and Piper, not Dewdrop, specifically Piper Niven, answering an open challenge from Sasha and Naomi. And this is essentially the storyline that we should have gotten in real life, in which Piper helps Nikki to get serious to drop the Nikki ASH gimmick instead of that gimmick being prolonged throughout the majority of the year, the way it was. So that Nikki could not necessarily go back to being crazy, but at least getting serious and being more of a serious wrestler, with Piper's help, which leads to um, Nikki and Piper winning another opportunity at the tag titles, defeating another put put together team for a match against Sasha and Naomi at Hell in a Cell. And Bayley makes her big return on SmackDown, playing up the crowd, reaction before Becky requests to see her on Raw, and through Becky just wanting Bayley to understand how she is now, and Bayley just like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. Becky makes examples out of her, leading to a steel cage match at Hell in a Cell. So we get to Hell in a Cell, and in real life, Bianca retained the Raw Women's title over Asuka and Becky, Judgment Day defeating Styles, Balor, and Morgan. Here, Sasha and Naomi defeat Piper and Nikki to retain the tag titles. Becky defeats Bayley, and Alexa takes Bayley with her. And Bianca defeats Asuka to retain the Raw Women's title. So then we get past Hell in a Cell. We get to Money in the Bank. Of course, there was that fatal four-way match between Alexa, Liv, Rhea, and Piper, in which Rhea won to get the right to face Bianca at Money in the Bank, except she took her own knee to the face, had some dental issues, and got a concussion, which meant that she would not be able to compete. Well, that match will happen in this timeline, except you replace Alexa with Asuka, and Rhea still wins. No concussion here. Roxanne Perez defeats Tiffany Stratton in the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament Final. I have that in here because that's been stuff that's in the background. Which also, aside from what I ended up discussing going into Money in the Bank, which I'll get to momentarily, for those of you that don't remember, I didn't really focus on NXT a lot, but there's going to be some stuff brought up on my side of the timeline to kind of fill in some gaps here and there, leading into what will happen going into 2023 with the Royal Rumble and things like that, because things are changing. Um, but anyway, you also get the Money in the Bank qualifiers. Carmella winning the Fatal 5-Way to take Rhea's spot against Bianca at Money in the Bank. And then Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade challenging for the NXT Women's Tag titles, held by Toxic Attraction. In my timeline, Rhea again wins the Fatal 4-Way match and doesn't get injured. We get to see Becky and Bayley with Alexa for the first time on Alexa's playground. Mandy Rose calls out her teammates for losing their tag titles to Katana Chance and Caden Carter at In Your House. In real life, Toxic Attraction had retained, but in this case, they lose them. And Sasha and Naomi interrupt the argument between the trio to announce that there'll be a tournament within NXT in which the winner moves up to SmackDown to to compete for the final spot in the women's Money in the Bank match, but to determine the eighth entrant uh, of the tournament, Gigi and JC would be facing each other for that spot, in which Gigi wins and then beats Ivy Nile on the same night to advance in the tournament, and then gets kicked out, and then as of the following week gets kicked out of Toxic Attraction. Lacey Evans, instead of the return vignettes post Backlash, she returns here and beats Alia to get the first Money in the Bank spot. Sasha and Naomi come back to NXT the following week after announcing that the tournament stuff the week prior to offer up a challenge to Katana and Kaden for a match at Money in the Bank, which they accept. Indy Hartwell goes on to win the NXT tournament to get that final match opportunity to get into the Money in the Bank match, which she defeats Natalya to get into. Um, and Mandy and JC offer to have Gigi rejoin Toxic Attraction, but Gigi declines and makes it clear she wants Mandy's title. And this is exactly what I'm talking about filling in some gaps, because from here is where things change in the NXT title picture. Um, as you will see as we go along. So, in real life, Bianca defeats Carmella to retain the Raw Women's title. Liv Morgan wins the women's Money in the Bank briefcase, and then cashes it in on Ronda later in the night after Ronda defeated Natalya to retain the SmackDown Women's title. Here in this story, Sasha and Naomi lose to Katana and Kaden in a non-title match that is explicitly made about respect and honor between the two teams, and Sasha and Naomi as they would talk about on the following SmackDown, making it clear that they wanted to provide shine to the NXT Women's Tag Titles as well as their own, and this was the way they wanted to do it. Alexa, courtesy of some late assistance from Becky and Bayley, wins the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And then Bianca defeats Rhea to retain the Raw Women's title later in the night, thanks to interference from Liv Morgan, who was in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So, yes, Liv doesn't win Money in the Bank in this timeline, but if you've watched the videos, if you've watched the series up to this point, you know what happens. And if you haven't, well, you'll see. So in real life, a bunch of things happen. Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez defeated Gigi and JC for the NXT Women's Tag Titles at Great American Bash, only for Cora to turn on Roxanne on NXT after Roxanne cashed in her breakout contract for a title shot against Mandy Rose, and Cora turning on her essentially out of jealousy and then dumping the NXT Women's Tag Title, or her tag title, in the trash, a la Medusa, aka Alundra Blaze. Um, and then Zoe Stark returned from injury to enter a 20 women battle royal, winning it to then go on to challenge Mandy Rose for the NXT Women's title. Maxine Dupree debuts for Maximum Male Models and would eventually take over the group when Max Dupree became LA Knight again. Rhea Ripley makes her return with the Judgment Day and attacks the Mysterios. Roxanne ends up vacating the NXT Women's Tag Titles, and a tournament would be done or it's either a tournament or a fatal. I thought it was a tournament. It became a fatal four-way match to determine who the new champs would be, which of course would be Kaden and Katana. Becky Lynch gets another shot at Bianca Belair's Raw Women's title at SummerSlam, and Ronda gets a rematch with Liv at SummerSlam. In this timeline, Charlotte interrupts Sasha and Naomi on SmackDown, who are praising their Money in the Bank opponents, declaring that she's retaking control of SmackDown, only for Alexa to return, or to show up rather, and declare that she's cashing in her Money in the Bank contract to face Charlotte at SummerSlam for the SmackDown Women's title, and that Sasha and Naomi will defend the tag titles against Becky and Bayley at the same show. Mandy Rose ends up facing Gigi Dolan at Great American Bash and retains her title thanks to JC Jane interference. Cora and Roxanne challenge Katana and Kaden for the NXT Women's Tag Titles, losing the match at Great American Bash. Cora gets pinned. Cora tries to get Roxanne to use the breakout contract to get a rematch, but Roxanne wants to hold on to it to get a shot at Mandy's title eventually, although it won't be Mandy's for much longer. And Cora goes behind Roxanne's back at ahead of Heatwave to turn in the contract for a rematch. And then Maxine's debut still happens, and Bianca ends up facing Liv and Rhea in a triple threat match at SummerSlam. So, at SummerSlam, of course, this being the first pay per view with Triple H at the helm of WWE Creative, after all the things with Vince McMahon. Yeah, look where we're at right now. But this was a huge night. And Bianca retains the Raw Women's title over Becky Lynch, with Becky unfortunately suffering an injury. And then, right afterward, Bayley makes her big return from injury, followed by a returning Dakota Kai, who had previously been let go, and a debuting Io Shirai, now called up from NXT and returning from her own injury. At least that's how I remember it. And also now being called Io Sky. And we had the standoff between them and then Bianca and Becky. Liv retains the SmackDown Women's title over Ronda despite tapping out at the same time Ronda was pinned, and Ronda would attack the referee after the match, resulting in suspension. In this timeline, Sasha and Naomi lose the tag titles to Becky and Bayley, and the way the feud's been presented is Becky and Bayley have constantly been focusing on Sasha, but Naomi keeps getting in the way. Excuse me. So Naomi is attacked post match by Becky and Bayley, and that causes her to get stretchered out, and Naomi gets written off TV for basically the rest of the year. She will return though. Liv Morgan ends up pinning Rhea Ripley in the triple threat match, following an Oblivion after knocking Rhea, who had Bianca Belair up for the Riptide, into the ropes and causing Belair to get dumped to the outside. Morgan taking the Raw Women's title, and then Bliss defeats Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. A shitload of things would happen here after SummerSlam, with Bayley, Dakota, and Io attacking Becky Lynch on Raw to write her off due to her injury. The Fatal 4-Way NXT Women's Tag Title match, again won by Katana and Kaden. Women's Tag Title Tournament came up. Shayna Baszler would win a gauntlet match to face Liv Morgan at Clash in the Castle. We get big returns from Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. Um, BFAB alongside Hit Row. Ronda Rousey shenanigans. And then Toxic Attraction getting brought up to replace Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark in the women's tag title tournament due to Stark being injured, I believe via concussion, after their first round match, and Nikita also not being able to go into Canada because that's where the SmackDown episode was going to be because not having the COVID vax. But we're not going to get into that. And then they ended up getting pulled because one of them got hurt, as I remember it. And then you have Miku Satomura and Blair Davenport, Miku being the NXT UK Women's Champion and Blair being the number one contender to her title, confronting Mandy Rose on NXT to set up a title unification match at Worlds Collide. And then Bliss, Belair, and Asuka to face Bayley, Sky, and Kai at Clash in the Castle. Raquel Rodriguez and Alia defeating Io Sky and Dakota Kai in the women's tag team tournament final. Nikki and Piper getting to face Katana and Kaden for the NXT women's tag titles at Worlds Collide as well. Uh, in this timeline, and again, this is a large part of the NXT background stuff that I'm now writing in. Roxanne and Cora lose at NXT Heatwave to Katana and Kaden. Roxanne choosing not to break up a pin, in which Cora Jade takes the pin, um, because of what Cora had done, and Cora officially turns heel on Roxanne by attacking her after the match. Mandy defending her NXT Women's title in a triple threat match at Heatwave against Gigi and JC, which Mandy had JC put in to help her retain, but JC ends up turning on Mandy, beats her, wins the title, and Mandy gets written off for the foreseeable future. Although she doesn't go on to get released because of the leaked fan time thing. We'll get to that later. Gigi ends up stepping up to JC and they rekindle their duoship, becoming a team again. And then the confrontation with Miku and Blair happens, setting up the unification match. Alexa returns to Raw for one last night on the brand before, well, at least, being a part of Raw before moving over to SmackDown. Cutting a promo on Alexa's playground and then running into Bianca later, having a private meeting with her, which leads to Bianca turning heel later in the show. and Charlotte demands a rematch with Alexa on SmackDown, but Alexa informs her that she'll have to go through Becky at Clash in the Castle first, and then Alexa calls out Isla Dawn for a match at Clash in the Castle, which she accepts. Karrion Kross's return still happens. B-Fab's return still happens. Charlotte gets Sasha to back her in her efforts to go up against Alexa, Becky, and Bayley, but Sasha ends up getting attacked by Becky and Bayley during a confrontation following a tag title defense, in which Alexa, after the two girls pinned Sasha to the ground, Alexa ended up spitting black mist in Sasha's face, which begins a transformation of her own. Bianca faces Liv at Clash in the Castle, and I decided to keep Nikki and Piper's match with Kaden and Katana at Worlds Collide to remain as a thing in this timeline because I think why not? So Clash in the Castle happens. Bayley, Io, and Dakota defeated Bianca, Alexa, and Asuka in real life, and Liv defeated Shayna. In this timeline, Charlotte and Becky open the show. Charlotte wins after a little help from Sasha. Becky and Bayley attack Sasha afterward. Alexa and Isla happens mid-show, going to a stalemate after about 15 minutes, before both end up disappearing with a note left behind for Isla saying respect is earned and you earned it, coming of course from Alexa. And Liv retains the title over Bianca via countout after Bianca gets dumped over the barricade and attacked by Rhea, both of whom Bianca attacks post-match. So coming out of Clash in the Castle in real life, Mandy ended up defeating Miko and Blair to unify the women's titles. Kaden and Katana defeated Nikki and Piper, and I believe around this time Piper ended up going away. If you look at the roster page on Wikipedia, it lists Piper as being out due to mental health issues, which honestly I didn't even know that that's why we haven't seen Piper in quite some time. So I hope she's doing all right. Um, Ronda wins the opportunity to rematch Liv Morgan at Extreme Rules. Dakota and Io end up winning a rematch for the women's tag titles over Aaliyah and Raquel. Bayley challenges Belair for a Raw Women's title match at Extreme Rules in a ladder match. We get a big return from Candice LeRae, uh, who defeats Nikki ASH in her return. So Ruka debuts on NXT. And of course, what I got to see live in person, Zelina Vega returns alongside a debuting Legado del Fantasma to ambush Hit Row on SmackDown. In my timeline, Miku defeats JC and Blair to unify the NXT and NXT UK women's titles and honors Blair's number one contendership with a one-on-one match on NXT a couple weeks later, with Miku retaining. Kaden and Katana obviously retain the women's tag titles. Shotzi wins a fatal four-way match to face Alexa at Extreme Rules, while Charlotte ends up having to face Bayley. Alexa declaring Charlotte's match to be a lumberjack strap match with Sasha handcuffed inside a shark cage above the ring. And I know that's a lot of crazy shit, but again, if you go back and watch the Extreme Rules video, you'll understand why. Um, and Alexa gives Shotzi the chance to choose their stipulation, which would be a weaponized ladder match. Throughout this whole portion of the timeline, Sasha is continuously either attacked or taunted or both by Alexa slash Becky slash Bayley. Candice's return, Soruka's debut, and Zelina's return all still happen. And Liv will go on to defend the SmackDown Women's title against Bianca and Rhea in a ladder match of their own at Extreme Rules. In real life, at Extreme Rules, Ronda defeated Liv for the SmackDown Women's title. Bianca defeated Bayley for the Raw Women's title. And Bray Wyatt makes his huge return after the main event. Now, I have that listed here because of what goes on to happen later involving Uncle Howdy and Alexa. So that's why that's listed. But in my timeline, Charlotte and Bayley opens. Sasha manages to get something to Charlotte through the cage, which Flair uses to win before Becky and Bayley attack Sasha again. Liv sacrifices herself in the triple threat ladder match, basically in a way of luring Bianca away from the ring so that Rhea can go up and win the title. Liv gets written off as a result. Alexa and Shotzi go at it in their match with Alexa winning, and the Bray Wyatt return does still happen. The difference in my timeline compared to real life is that the Bray Alexis, or is that anything related to Alexa and Uncle Howdy, does not happen in my timeline simply because of this story that Alexa's got going and the way it's going. Um, I think I can possibly address that in a future episode, maybe when I get around to when this story ends, but we'll get to that when we get to it. After Extreme Rules, Mandy defeated Alba Fire to retain her NXT Women's title at Halloween Havoc. This is the real life portion of the timeline. Nikki returns having dropped the ASH gimmick, returning during Bianca and Bayley's Raw Women's title match on Raw, and having gone crazy again. Kaden and Katana retain their NXT Women's Tag titles against Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark, and then they would rematch them later on, and retain again, and that would be when Zoe turns on Nikita. Um, Ava Raine, daughter of The Rock, is revealed as the fourth member of Schism. Emma returns to answer open challenge from Ronda Rousey on SmackDown. Shayna officially aligns with Ronda and breaks Natalia's nose. Alexa and Asuka defeated Dakota and Io for the women's tag titles, rematching at Crown Jewel, and Bianca and Bayley rematching at Crown Jewel as well in a last man standing match. In my timeline, Miku goes on to defeat Alba to retain the NXT Women's title at Halloween Havoc instead of Mandy. Charlotte confronts Alexa to get a rematch, but Alexa does not budge, and Charlotte won't get it until she's dealt with the all being Sasha, who turns on Charlotte and finally joins Alexa's group, also resulting in Charlotte facing Sasha at Crown Jewel. And then Bianca faces Rhea for the Raw Women's title at Crown Jewel in a last woman standing match. And of course, Ava Raine's debut remains the same. So we get to Crown Jewel, and real life, Dakota and Io reclaimed the women's tag titles, with Alexa seeing Bray's logo appear on screen near her while doing a pre-match backstage promo, and Bianca defeated Bayley to retain her title. In this timeline, Sasha defeats Charlotte in an 8 to 9 minute brutal squash, and then Becky and Bayley carry Charlotte out of the arena, and Bianca defeats Rhea for the Raw Women's title. Post Crown Jewel, Mia Yim returned to join the OC as foil to Judgment Day's Rhea Ripley. We get Damage Control versus Bianca's team at War Games, in which Mia would join Bianca's team. Rhea Ripley would be on Team Damage Control. Nikki Cross would defeat Dana Brooke for the 24/7 title and then drops it by the trash on the way out, essentially retiring the belt. She would also join Team Damage Control. The aforementioned Katana and Kaden rematch against Nikita and Zoe, which they retained, and then Stark turned on Lyons. Shotzi winning a six-pack challenge to face Ronda for the SmackDown Women's title at Survivor Series. Sarah Logan, renamed Valhalla, returning with the Viking Raiders. Happens. Issa Dawn debuts in NXT to attack and cost Alba Fire's title rematch on NXT against Mandy. Rhea Ripley wins the War Games Advantage match over Asuka. Becky Lynch returns to join Team Bianca for War Games, and Raquel getting her arm injured by Ronda and Shayna. In my timeline, Mia Yim, that return still happens, as does Issa Dawn, although it's an Alba Fire's title rematch against Miku Satomura rather than Mandy Rose. Alexa declares that Charlotte won't be seen for a while, and also declares that Bianca needs to find people to go to hell with in War Games. Now, this part I have to retcon from the original video that I did for War Games because, one, I was not feeling good at that time. Two, I didn't have a freaking script for that for the most part. And three, I said 3 different SmackDown stars except Bianca's on Raw. So the retconning here is that instead of Carmella, Zelina, and Zia Lee, it's Candice LeRae, Nikki, and Dana that teams with Bianca here for War Games. Sarah Logan's return does still happen, and Sasha would defeat Dana for the War Games Advantage match, with Alexa declaring that she'll go in first. In real life, Team Bianca defeats Damage Control at the Women's War Games match, and Ronda defeated Shotzi. Here, Team Alexa defeats Team Bianca in the Women's War Games match, with Alexa brutalizing Bianca during and after the match. And Bianca leaves, needing to gather herself after having the darkness beaten out of her. So, with having gone through all of that, we now get to post Survivor Series, which is where we're at now. And what remains the same going into the Royal Rumble this weekend. Iron Survivor in NXT does still happen. Um, with Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, Zoe Stark, Kiana James. The fifth spot will be somebody else, not Indy Hartwell, because she's already on the main roster. Um, Tegan Knox will make her return, but not with Liv Morgan as the way she did in real life. I will address that in the Royal Rumble video. Um, and then you have all the Bianca Alexa stuff that's happened in real life, with the Uncle Howdy shenanigans, um, and then uh, the Mandy Rose thing, Lyra Valkyria debuting on NXT, that will still happen. Um, and then Charlotte's return in real life as well after Ronda defeats Raquel. Um, after Raquel had won a gauntlet match to get a shot at Ronda's SmackDown Women's title, Ronda defeats Raquel on SmackDown, followed by Charlotte returning and beating Ronda in an impromptu match for the belt. Um, and then you're going into New Year's Evil, um, with Gigi Dolan and JC Jane winning the number one contender battle royal to face Roxanne Perez at Vengeance Day, and then Stevie Turner's backstage debut at New Year's Evil as well. So some of these things will still happen. I will address more when I do the Royal Rumble video. But with all of that being said, um, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it's a lot. It's over 30. This is a video that's going to be over 32 minutes long. So I hope y'all enjoy. I'll have this video up in the morning. I got to get myself to bed. So thank y'all for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.